Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're at, ladies and gents. I am Kura Isagami, your resident tinkerer and Medarotter, and this is the Medarot News Network, bringing you all the latest developments and happenings with our favorite pet fighting robot series. Now, I'm trying something new, essentially, as a more or less debut into the YouTubing industry, and that's promoting my videos and breakdowns in a presentation-based format instead of a text-based comment as I have been prior to. The issue with that was Discord, while great for what it serves, unfortunately has a little bit of an issue for me, and that's the fact that it's hard to crunch a lot of information in a 2,000 character limit comment. So I decided to try something different this time with a video-based format, and if this does work, I may end up transitioning to this full-time, a new video each week, maybe more if there's something going on, because it'll give me much more freedom to go into detail over aspects or information that might need a little more time to explain that I can't get into a 2,000 character limit while still covering everything else. That being said, if you have any comments, ideas, or constructive criticism, especially with this being my first, like I mentioned, debut, I am more than open to feedback in comments below, and I appreciate anything that you might have to say, both good and constructive, that I can use to further improve each coming video as time goes on. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this week. We actually had a rather interesting tease starting last night, in fact, with two particular VTubers in name, as you see here, called the Omega Sisters, Ray and Rio. I looked on their channel after I started seeing some comments about them popping up, and discovered that they apparently were doing a collaboration with Medarot. So I took a look at the video and figured, okay, there's some rather interesting designs here. Let's see where it develops. And sure enough, I woke up this morning and found Imagineer Medarot had indeed posted their side of the collab and confirmed what I honestly didn't expect would ever happen, and that is a collaboration with VTubers, with the Omega Sisters specifically. Now, the last collaboration Medarot had was the Digimon collaboration that brought in and debuted Omega Knight, Grey Wars, and Garuru Metal, which honestly blew everybody away. So the fact that Medarot's finally starting to gain some ground and start doing some more collaborations with folks is a huge, huge piece of news for them, and I am very excited and looking forward to seeing where they go to from here. Now, with this being said, as you see here, there are two brand new bots that are being debuted with this collaboration, so let's go ahead and jump right on into what was revealed about them in this morning's announcement. So the first one on the board we had is OMG0 Omega Tail. I kind of got like a historical accurate angel kind of vibe at first, and then looking at it again, I got a little bit more of like 02 from Kirby. But still, even with that, the red and gold is a very nice design concept with the gray. Very unique design overall, and based on what I was reading about its kit and translated, it says that it has a head part of Snipe, both arms are Beam with a float leg, and the leg ability Carrier. And to go into briefly what Carrier triggers, it's a passive ability that chances passing a debuff you have onto your target. So to explain this a little bit briefly, let's say for instance you're in a row battle, and your target sets you on fire with a melt attack, and you're facing a damage over time effect essentially each tick of the clock. With the Carrier ability, that allows you to essentially inflict that DOT onto your target, so they have to suffer it with you. Now, in terms of his overall kit, at first I wasn't necessarily impressed with the fact of him just being double Beam. Not to say that Beam is bad, but the problem is that Beam, as you see here, with both of its arms, is not a pierce-based attack. So it's basically good for spot nuking, so destroying a single part and that's about it. It does, however, have good damage modifiers at a ×2 modifier at 30% Metaforce charge, and that jumps up to ×3 at 100%. Now, good modifiers, but no pierce damage kind of sets it back a little bit in my book, but the redeeming quality and trait that Omega Tail offers to the table is the Snipe skill. Now, this actually was changed just a little bit from how it behaved in Medarot 9 when it was revealed, but in Medarot S, the way it explains is that it allows any non-piercing shooting attack to have pierce damage on the user's next turn. So that basically takes that single target nuking beam attack and actually puts more oomph behind it by allowing the beam to deal pierce damage where it originally could not. This definitely does make using beam in his kit quite forgiving, in the sense that he can use it as one-time shooting and then pile it on for extra damage as he gains more of a charge. Now, on top of that, he also is pretty tanky at a little over 3,100 HP, closer to 3,200 per part, which is honestly still very good. Both his arms clocking about 1,500 to almost 1,600 attack base power per part, which is also very, very solid, especially for an attack that gets a damage multiplier. His legs also have another really nice set of skills about them. Evade of 938, HP of 3,199, and a mobility of 779, which honestly is fantastic for a float leg. To explain this briefly, float legs, your typical sweet spot for them would sit at about 500 to 600 maybe on a good one, but in recent I've noticed a trend where we're getting more float legs that are much faster, which is honestly fantastic because float legs get an A rank on every single terrain, and on terrain matching bonus, that's 10% to all leg stats, minus HP and heavy limit. So that 779 realistically would probably be sitting closer to low to mid 800s, probably like 850 at the max, just as a brief ballpark, which is still even better for a float leg. And because he's a collab bot, I definitely would recommend pushing to at least try to snag one part of him at regardless. But with that, Omega Tail was not just the only collaboration bot that was revealed. The other one here is OMG01 Barasitalio, with a kit of Desperate, Breakhammer, CG Drain, and the leg ability Bloodstain. Now, the arms and leg ability are nothing new. We've had these before, but this is Medarot S's official debut of the skill Desperate. Now, to explain that, Desperate is a support skill that buffs the damage of all attacking parts on the build by ×3. The caveat, however, is that you are forced to take half the damage you deal as recoil. So think of essentially as maybe like Double Edge, or maybe like Skull Bash, or it's a Head Smash from Pokemon, where you deal massive damage with a single blow when prepped, but then you're forced to take recoil for it. That definitely makes Barasitalio's kit a little more nuking oriented for a spread kit like she has. But on top of that, even without that, if you were to use her for mixed parts, that would definitely make building a female nuker a little bit easier, especially in points where having power is a little trickier to build on female models, which will definitely come into play. Breakhammer for her right arm is honestly fantastic for heavy punish for foes and targets that like to use 2 or more heavy parts. It also does have pierce damage innately, which is great, and it gains a buff to its success stat with Metaforce Charge, which ties into your likelihood of the attack landing, but also the chance of it landing a critical hit, which is a base damage of about 1.5 to ×2 of the intended power. The left arm is CG Drain, which is pretty fantastic for stalling Metaforce-reliant nukers and spammers, because it basically will sap their Metaforce gauge and cut down on any bonus modifiers or conditional buffs that require it to be a certain charge or higher. Now, to kind of tie into this, her leg ability is Bloodstain, which we've seen before on bots such as Stab Strike, and that is the ability that it buffs power for every part the user breaks while in battle. Now, like I mentioned, Barasitalio by herself doesn't necessarily look like a nuking-based fighter at first glance. However, the introduction of Desperate into the kit and the ability Bloodstain make up for that hugely. Now, if you were to say take her arms and trade them out for, say, Hardness 10's Power Rifle, or perhaps Stab Strike's Pile Moves for melee, that definitely would add an extra oomph to that base damage, and make more use of the Bloodstain ability, and make every effort of Desperate worth it despite the recoil you would take. And overall, her stats across the board are also pretty good. Lowest HP I'm seeing here is 2849, or just under 30,000, which is still pretty solid. Highest is the left arm, the legs at about 3350, which is also pretty solid. Leg mobility at 789, which is honestly fantastic. The closer you are to 750 is typically your sweet spot for biped legs. The closer to 800 you're at is the better, but 789 is that nice sweet spot between the average and the higher end, so she's definitely going to be at no loss for speed while running. However, this aside, it also came with the announcement of the collaboration itself, where you battle Burasitalio, I apologize for the spelling issue, and Omega Tail to earn credits to use in the exchange shop for rewards. Prizes from this collaboration dungeon include skins for Medarots like Arika and Karen. Both names are of course very iconic to the Medarot series, to anyone who's watched the anime or perhaps even played the original GBA game, which also is a more iconic title that a lot of people understand. But one of the other benefits to this is that you can also include the Dream Medal and a limited time name card to add to your profile, as you see here. Now, these don't come all that often. The last one that we got, that was a limited time banner, including the EX Trial banner nameplate that you see above the name, you don't see those all too often. The last one we had was for the Digimon collaboration. So another chance at getting a limited time nameplate is also really nice to have. Adds more charm to the event and more incentive to farm for it while you can. And on that, it is a ticket-based event, so you can use respective bots of either red or blue tiers or Medarots to earn bonus tickets of each color when battling in the Collab dungeon. Now, I do need to explain something, clarify it just a little bit. Events typically go one of two ways. They are either percentage-based or they are ticket-based. Percentage-based bots tally the total percentage of bonus parts towards a higher multiplier. Ticket-based apply a single bonus regardless of if you're using one part or four. So say, for instance, you pull in the gacha and you pull the entire set of Omega Tail. So that'll be a +5 to any earnings you get of red tickets. However, the issue is that if you use him as a pure set exclusively while farming, you're only going to get a bonus of a flat +5. However, if you spread the parts across your 3 team members, you actually get a +5 per each member of the team that's using a bonus part. So in this kind of event, it's much easier and more recommended to spread the parts across the team instead of focusing on building them for pure sets only, as some people might consider. Another big piece of news that was announced with this collaboration is that it'll be lasting until 6:30 at the end of the month. So that gives you plenty of time to farm for any materials that you might be lacking in and resources, as well as farm for the limited skins, the banner, the name card, and the Dream Medal. So if you've been falling behind on your farming per day, or you've been running low on materials, this is your chance to stock up on it and cap out your inventory so that you shouldn't be lacking for a while. Moving forward, Graph Art also announced a new line of merchandise to celebrate and commemorate the collaboration, with cardboard stands, with posters, and with acrylic pins. All of this you can also find on their website or on the Medarots Club website as well in more detail. And then for the fierce battles of this week, we have all returnees, unfortunately, but in terms of that, I'm not seeing anything in particular that's worth farming for this week. First on the line is Landrochio. Anyone who's played the Medarot 2 core game or watched the anime knows him well, with his kit of anti-air and double beam with a tank leg and the ability Bullet Rain. Now to go briefly into this Medarot S was Landrochio's official debut into the 3D verse, and it's been quite some time since anyone has seen him for a while. So it is nice to see all the Select 3 back again. However, that unfortunately is where the bonuses end for him, because unfortunately anti-air and double beam is not a very solid kit, even if his leg ability of Bullet Rain, which grants bonus to success and power of equipped shooting parts if yours exceeds the number of your targets. However, the issue with that is he has no pierce damage potential, and his head part of anti-air is very, very situational at best. So unfortunately, I would have to rate him maybe like a 3 or a 4 out of 10 in terms of viability and farming effort. I would say go for him just for the sake of having the parts in the rare case you might need them, but otherwise, Landrochio really doesn't bring a lot to the table that might be worth considering or making use of regularly. The next fierce battle that we have lined up for this week is Charged Seeds. Another returnee. From anyone who's played the game or watched the anime, they may better know him as Floro. It is nice to see him come back again, but unfortunately, he honestly is much worse off than Landrochio, with a kit of Beam and Double Heater Plant, with a multi-leg and the ability Extra Magazine. Beam, of course, like I mentioned, is a pretty powerful attack. The problem is that it has no pierce damage by default, which means that you are going to be hurting for pierce damage and nuking potential, since you can only attack one part at a time. The other issue with Charged Seeds is that both his arms offer the same buff, which is Heater Plant. What that does, to go into it briefly, is it puts a plant on the field that passively buffs the heat stat of every ally on your side of the field, which means they will progressively run to the line faster. Now, not to say that Heater Plant itself is bad. The problem is that Charged Seeds has it on 2 of his parts, which makes it redundant and really, really hurts his potential viability on any kind of team build or even as mixed parts. His legs do offer him a little bit of saving grace and compensation with the Extra Magazine ability, which grants an additional head use and buffs the heat and cool stats of the equipped head part on the build. This, like I mentioned, is probably his one and only saving grace, but I would highly recommend not using Charged Seeds as a pure set at all. Personally, I would recommend not using him in general, because his kit, even with the Extra Magazine ability, you can still find relatively easily elsewhere with a much better kit and much better versatility. Out of 10, I would probably rate Charged Seeds about a 1 or a 2. Collect him just for the sake of having the parts, but I would take it as far as that. You really have no serious need to pull for him or to farm. He's really just kind of there to be there, and not much more to it. Next up on the set is the last of the 3 fierce battles for this week, and that is Glmsekizo. People who watch the anime will better know him under the English name Glumeg. He brought back his original kit that has not changed from his early days, and that is simply put, Triple Missile. All AoE attacks that are gunpowder based, with a tank leg and the leg ability Continuous P, which passively buffs mobility every turn. Now, aesthetically, I really do like Sekizo's design. I always did enjoy that golem statue aesthetic that he had going for him, which honestly is still really, really good. However, because all of his attacks are AoE and all his parts are heavy parts at that unfortunately is where his versatility and potential viability ends. Not to say that missile parts don't have a place, but the problem is that AoE spread the damage evenly across all active parts of the target, which means if you were to deal, say, for instance, 4,000 damage on a critical hit, you'd only be dealing realistically about 1,000 per part, which really isn't a lot. And unfortunately, that really hurts Sekizo's potential ability as a fighter. Now, his parts themselves are still potentially useful, but as a pure set or making use of AoEs primarily, I would not recommend it at all. His legs, however, I actually would recommend farming for just for the sake of having them, because they are arguably one of the best and better tank legs in the game, specifically and exclusively for Continuous P, which, like I mentioned, passively buffs mobility every turn. Now, the nice thing about this, and to explain it, Continuous P is short for Continuous Propulsion, and basically what this means is that for every turn you complete, your mobility or heat stat go up passively every turn. So even though you're using a tank leg, which is the slowest leg in the game and has no terrain bonus whatsoever, he's progressively going to be going faster, which will make the leg much more worth it to keep up with faster foes in, say, for instance, an EX trial where you are required to use tank legs. So for versatility and worthwhile of farming, I would probably rank him about a 4.5 maybe out of 10. Again, mostly because his kit itself isn't all that great, but the redeeming factor on this is his legs, which anyone can make use of if they are required to use tank legs for anything whatsoever, but still want to keep mobility as in the forefront of their mind as something to consider when building. Now, with the Fierce Battles covered, we do have a couple of the pieces of news that were covered in this recent video, and that we are beginning a story mode Arc 5 for the game that will be released sometime in June. To touch base on this briefly, this also goes into what was covered last week and revealed with an update on the Ori Meta winners from earlier this year. It was revealed that they would be making their official debut in the game this month, but also with a new story quest, as well as being written by one of the original story writers from the original Medarot 1 back in the day. So it's going to be really exciting, not just to have another story to play, and more rubies to collect, obviously, but also to see the brand new bots in all their glory, and see how well they behave and perform overall. And when they are officially revealed, either in story or as Fierce Battles or Gacha banners, I will be more than happy to go over them and determine if they are worth the farming or if there's something more to have as a trophy bot. The other thing that was revealed for this week is PvP League, for anyone that likes to keep up with that. This week's challenge will be on cyber terrain, so all legs have S rank compatibility, which is 20% bonus to all stats except HP and heavy limit. But the modifier for it is pure sets only. So unfortunately, mixed sets are something that you cannot use, so go with your main bot is something that you can make use of if you're using pure sets, which will add for a little bit of an interesting challenge. But given that we have a collaboration this week, I highly anticipate we're probably going to be seeing a lot of Omega Tail and Burra Satalios across all the users that are playing in this week. With that being said, I believe we are officially at the end of this week's video. Thanks for stopping by. If you'd like to know more, you can follow us below at the Medarot News Network or the Metabots Forever community on Facebook. You can follow my page there, the MMN, or join our community, Metabots Forever. We just recently peaked over 1,000 members, so we are getting ready to celebrate with a giveaway sometime very soon. Details to follow, very likely on this channel, once more details come to light and everything has been finalized for it. You can also join us on Discord at Project Rising Beetle's Metabots server, link provided below. You can also follow me personally on Twitter at Isagami if you have any questions for me, or want to follow me for more Medarot related content or 3D creation. I do also recommend giving the Omega Sisters a follow as well, Omesis Ray and Omesis Rio. Their channels have a lot of really unique content on their site. Definitely going to be worth a stop. And with that, I do appreciate you stopping by. If you'd like to see the original video, an announcement video from Medarot's YouTube channel, I will provide a link in the description below. And as I mentioned earlier at the start of the video, if you have any kind of thought or feedback or ideas that you'd like to see me cover, or maybe even some tips or tricks that I could use to maybe improve the quality of future videos, I would be greatly appreciative of that. Please do leave them in the comments below. Tell me what you think. And I do hope to hear from you soon. Thanks again for stopping by, folks. Always happy to have you in to visit. Until next time, this is your host, Kura Isagami of the Medarot News Network, signing out.